So, hi to anybody watching. I am making this video just to talk about an injury that recently happened to me, which is the rupture of the distal head of my bicep tendon while training, while doing a hefesto. I am kind of making this video out of nowhere, but I just wanted to share my experience and my thoughts in the most public way possible. Just because I think it is kind of useful to have this kind of content, this kind of information made public for other people who are, I don't know, dealing with this kind of injuries or who just want to find out more information from people who have experienced this injury and possibly even get a little bit more info on how to avoid it. I suppose the perfect target for this video would be me in another dimension, just in the moments after the injury, just scrolling through YouTube to find someone else that has undergone the same thing and how to deal with it. So I'm gonna try to give a little bit of structure to this video. In the first part, I'm gonna try to talk about the circumstances in which the injury happened to me, what my physical situation actually was. Then I'm gonna try to possibly discuss some reasons why this might have happened to me. And but it's gonna be kind of random. I mean, I just want to share my thoughts about it. So, as I have said, this injury happened while I was training hefesto. That was supposed to be the third workout of the week, and it was supposed to be all about hefesto and front lever touch. When it happened, I had already warmed up, and I was attempting to do the third set of hefesto. I was trying to do hefesto and then back lever sat. So what happened is I was in back lever tuck position, and I tried to unlock the hefesto, and when I was about, I don't know, 20, possibly even less degrees in, I just felt a weird sensation in the left bicep. It was like a cramp-like feeling with a pop. And after that, I just lost strength. I just looked at my bicep and I found out that the bicep was not there anymore. I mean, it was shorter and kind of painful, and not really painful, but it felt like a long-lasting cramp feeling. But the muscle was not aching in a unbearable way. Like, it was not painful. That's what I'm trying to say. So the thing is, this injury kind of happened in an unexpected manner. I was warmed up and I had done some warm up with bands just to get some blood flowing in the bicep. I had also done some handstands just to warm up the wrists and so on. And I had done something like 5 sets of hefesto attempts before with bands, scaling it, like from starting off with a, I don't know, 10 kilogram band down to a couple kilograms. The thing is, I normally always do a couple sets with lower intensity. That is, I try, for example, unlocking a hefesto with I don't know, 50 to 60% strength, and then I scale it up to 90 and so on. So the previous sets were like just to test my strength level, and I was approaching the good set with an, I don't know, 90% intensity. So I was about to give all I had, and yeah, as I've said, the injury happened. So at the time when the injury happened, I had no pain. I had no signs of bicep strain or whatsoever. I mean, if I had to find something to say, possibly I had a little bit of muscle soreness in both biceps, but it was like the tiniest amount that one would consider physiological when you train 4 times a week and you kind of often do intense stuff. So it was kind of normal. I always have this minimal pain. It's not pain, it's like you feel you are not 100% fresh when you work out. I would say that was normal. One thing I actually have to mention is that I had recently, that is 2 months before the injury happened, restarted training, or I should say, restarted training straight arm strength in pushing, like planche and so on, after an injury. That is what I would refer to as a self-diagnosed tendonitis of the distal bicep tendon. That is the same tendon that actually broke. I call it like self-diagnosed because I didn't go to a doctor, but I have experienced this kind of tendonitis before on the other arm, and it felt kind of the same. So I'm positive it was something like this. Yeah, as I have said, this injury started in May, I would say, and lasted up to beginning/mid-August. So a couple months, typical healing time for a tendonitis, I would say. After this injury, I restarted training planche, hefesto, and so on. That is in mid-August. And before I would only do like active recovery, such as handstand push-ups in the pushing part. The pulling was completely fine, so I could do everything. This tendinopathy could have been one of the causes of my injury. That is, it could be that the tendon was not completely healed and therefore was more susceptible to injury. Though I have to say, 2 months of reconditioning should be enough to highlight any deficit in the tendon. That is, I never had any kind of pain in the period in which I reconditioned myself and restarted doing planche and hefesto and so on. But I would say, I mean, I can accept that this injury counted as a co-factor in the result that was actually the rupture. Additionally, what I also have to say is I never actually conditioned myself properly to do the hefesto when I actually could do the hefesto. That is, I was able to gain the strength to do the movement, and the movement always kind of appeared simple to me without doing any specific work. I did train, for example, hefesto with bands and so on. I also trained the reverse muscle up before I did the hefesto. But what I'm trying to say is I was able to do my first hefesto without any particular effort. So I never had to do like the hours of work with bands and so on just to get the movement and to condition the tendons. I remember doing my first hefesto on rings by using like 50% of my maximum strength. So it always kind of felt easy to me. So the lack of previous work with bands and so on could have been also one of the reasons why this injury happened. Though it has to be said that I usually always train hefesto from the back lever position. That is, I only do the positive part of the movement, the concentric, and not the eccentric, because like 80% of the injuries in hefesto happen during the negative part of the movement because of biomechanical reasons concerning the activation of the bicep. That is always something I wanted to avoid. So I thought, well, if I'm going to train this, I'm going to do it, and I'm only going to do the part which is not associated with injuries. Yeah, as it turns out, the injury happened in the concentric part of the movement. So I suppose that was not that was not protective enough. The hefesto in itself was never the kind of exercise that I considered to be dangerous for me. I might have to explain this, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to make an example. I used to train the supinated planche, for example, supinated planche on rings and so on. I stopped doing supinated planche as soon as I realized, once I experienced an injury in my right arm, in which the distal bicep tendon was concerned. And from that time on, I avoided doing supinated planche because I knew it was associated with a high injury rate. And I thought, well, it's not worth it, since it already happened to me that, my bicep gave me signs of strain and so on. I'm not going to push it too far. With a hefesto, this actually never happened. It never ever happened to me that while doing the movement or in the post-workout time and so on, have I ever felt something wrong with my bicep. Recently, that is a couple weeks before the injury, I had also managed to do my first reverse sat at the end of workout. That is supposed to be very demanding for the bicep. Well, as it turns out, I never felt anything while doing it. I just trained it a little bit with bands and then I got it. But it was not that I felt any strain, fatigue on the bicep. And the same with the hefesto. I have to say, I never actually felt my bicep so much while doing a hefesto. High volume, sure, you start feeling something. Yeah, that's for sure. What I'm trying to say is I never felt the same kind of fatigue and strain that I experienced with the supinated planche, and that actually pushed me to avoid doing supinated planche. So this is another reason why I might have underestimated the difficulty and the dangerousness of this skill, I suppose. I must also specify that there are some skills, such as the hefesto, supinated planche, that are associated with a high injury rate. I would say there are some skills that are associated with an intrinsic risk and that can cause injury no matter how ready one is to perform this skill. And the hefesto is one of these. What I'm trying to say is I've spoken with some other athletes that have experienced this same injury. And what the majority of these people say is that the injury actually happened when they were warmed up, when they felt conditioned, ready to do the movement, but it just randomly happened. In my case, I was also warmed up. I was also mentally prepared, physically ready to do my training, to do the movement and so on. I had done it 100 times before, but this time something went wrong. What I'm trying to say is some skills are risky, some more than others. No matter how conditioned one is, it is possible that an injury for some reason actually occurs. Should we ban hefesto and supinated planche? Of course not. It doesn't make any sense to ban something just because someone got injured. If 90% of people actually get injured, then it could be a problem. But if it's something that happens to specific people in specific situations, then the responsibility does not lie in the skill itself, but in the people who train it. So yeah, hefesto and supinated planche, both are high risk skills. I would not suggest that for someone to stop training them, of course not, especially if someone likes it. I just want to advocate for everybody to do their own research and be aware that these skills are actually associated with high injury rate and often also in perfectly conditioned athletes. One should always kind of train smart when approaching these skills. So in my personal case, am I gonna train hefesto ever again? I don't think so. Definitely not. I had started training hefesto just to, fill in the gaps in which I felt ready to train, but not super ready, for example, to do planche. So I did hefesto because I've always, as I have said a million times, I always felt the movement would run smoothly. It was always kind of easy to me. So I just think the risk is just too high. I'm not gonna take it again. I'm not gonna do it again. Hefesto is just gonna be like the supinated planche. I'm just gonna look at other people do it, hope that nothing happens, but I'm not gonna take the risk, take the chance to injure myself again. Will I be back? I hope so. This injury actually takes like an infinite amount of time to heal, but it should be over in months' time, and then one just has to restart training from the beginning and rediscover the basics and so on to teach to the new tendon how to properly behave as a tendon. Yeah, so this is how the injury happened. This is my story, I suppose. What I want to say as last convey as last message is this injury was extremely unexpected. I never would have ever believed that this would have happened to me. I have studied deeply and thoroughly this injury and the mechanics of this injury in order to avoid it. I have modified my training routine, modified my workouts, modified what I actually do in my training to avoid this injury, but it happened. I suppose being cautious, one is never cautious enough. As I have said, keep on training, keep on doing what you like. But remember, these injuries happen, and sometimes they can happen even when one is not prepared and aware that they could actually manifest themselves. Yeah, I suppose that's gonna be it for now. Thanks for listening.